I want to dive into those issues a little more deeply with you. I want to know, how do we know what part of a global food crisis is the real problem, and where should we be focusing our attention to tackle that problem? And then, most importantly, how can we protect our nation? And individually, how can we protect our families? We know that the leading authorities are predicting a food crisis. What's that going to look like? Is it man-made, natural, a perfect storm caused by a combination of factors? Tell us about the food crisis.
Well, as far as its impact, it's going to be pretty geographically dispersed. Even within the U.S., you're talking about some places are probably not going to struggle as much because they're very close to or adjacent to both the resources and the production needed to convert raw material into some form of palatable food products for humans. You're going to have other places in the U.S. that are, historically food deserts, mainly because of transportation and regulatory issues that we can expect that to continue to worsen. In other parts of the world, you're talking about some countries, large parts of Africa, are wholly dependent on imports for staple cereal items like wheat or rice. They can't grow them for themselves. And so when we talk about major disruption to a breadbasket of the world, similar to what Russia and Ukraine and the Black Sea region at large is, for those countries, their idea of shortage is existential. It's immediate political crises. It's riots already in Sudan and other places. So the impact is going to be different. Here in the U.S. Or in China, food crisis tends to manifest in a mix of corporate and private sector response and public sector response. In other parts of the world, it just goes straight to apocalypse, right? Regime change. So here in the U.S., our response to food insecurity and a looming real crisis across a number of things, food of which is one of them, does look different than what maybe it looks like in China or looks like in Africa.
Well, this is scary to me because I remember the Arab Spring, and I've done a lot of research on the #1 economic weapon you can wage at another nation is to deny them food. Because when people lose food, what happens is it creates riots, instability, regime changes. It is the #1 issue for nations geopolitically in crisis.
Absolutely, it is. Here in the U.S., we're not going to see food shortages to the scale that we would see total regime collapse, maybe the way you would in other parts of the world. But what we are going to see here is a really complex, concerted effort by a lot of different stakeholders to grab their secure seat at the table, be on what they say would be the right side of the issue. So a major food processing company like an Archer-Daniels-Midland or maybe a Tate & Lyle, they're going to have a different perspective on what it is versus a Nutrien, which is a very large fertilizer, seed, and chemical retailer here in the U.S. They're going to all have a different perspective than maybe what a farmer thinks is best for him at his local level. And so the complexity of how all these various stakeholders resolve their individual needs and wants of their domain and be able to continue to produce enough crops at the scale we've become accustomed to, that's going to be a very difficult thing. The other thing for the U.S. is that we're a major food exporter, and across a lot of commodities and domains. We are a country that produces and sustains more than enough fresh fruits and vegetables for ourselves in terms of a per person. We produce more than enough grains and oil seeds for ourselves. We produce more than enough animal protein for ourselves. We have distribution challenges, but in the main, we export a lot of that. It's been a very powerful geopolitical and policy tool for us, using food as a diplomatic lever. And we're going to have less of that in the next few years than we've had in a long time.